You've tuned into the Bellingham Podcast for the week of Mother's Day, May 13, 2018, episode 80. From the city by the Sailor Sea, I am AJ Barce.
And 50% off for a limited time, I am Chris Powell. On this episode, whether you call her Taika, Anna, Matka, Mater, Mati, Nana, Abatis, Mor, Mutter, Mana, Makuahine, Anya, Madre, Okasan, Uma, Mat, Tina, Matri, Ami, Mer, or Mum. This is the time to celebrate our mothers, no matter what language you speak or where you live. So here's some moms everywhere from AJ and me. This is the Bellingham Podcast.
Chris, at the start of that, I was like, is he listing off a whole bunch of Pokemon or Pokemon? How you doing, Chris?
I'm happy to be here once again. And yourself?
Not too bad. I'm enjoying the fact that it's Mother's Day weekend.
And the windshields are not frosted over.
No.
Yes.
So on this show, this is dedicated to all of the madres out there. I think that was one of the ones that you had in there.
One of the many that I had learned the word mother in other languages. And so, yes, happy Mother's Day to all of you who may be listening and to those of you who may have moms out there who are listening.
Yeah. So, Chris, do you have any tech memories of your mom? Like, we talked off the mic, like we wanted to make this episode literally, like it's just a stories episode. There's no hashtag EDC, or I guess this would be a hashtag local episode now that I think about it. But, this is just us being us. So, Chris, what do you want to talk about?
We've had a couple episodes that have been pretty heavy, weighing on our hearts and our technological minds and such. So we got to get on the good foot. Like the Godfather of Soul once said, if it wasn't for my mom, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. And here's why. So I evidently was deemed a gifted student in my early Little Shaver years.
As you should.
Well, I wasn't aware, but my parents decided to, we moved up to a little town on the Olympic Peninsula called Sequim.
Oh, yeah, it's next to Sequim, right?
Yes, exactly. In 1981, back in the day, when there was only 3,180 population on the Welcome to Sequim sign. It was home of Matt Drake, a U.S. Olympics skeet shooter, a gold medalist in the 1980 Olympics.
Of course it was.
Of course it was, because that was what we saw every time we came into town. Anywho, getting me enrolled into the elementary school, because I was a third grader, 8-year-old little shaver at the time. My parents asked, do you have any extended learning classes? We have a gifted son, or you are about to have a gifted son in your ranks. They did, and it was a computer class in 1981. Ooh. So for those of you that watch *Halt and Catch Fire* on AMC, which is a darn good show, talking about the dawn of the computing age, this is around the time of the Apple II. And I found myself being told by my parents that I'm going to take the early bus as opposed to the regular bus with my classmates or with people my own age, because the extended learning class started at 8 a.m. instead of 9, like elementary school. And I had to ride with a bunch of high schoolers. So I was like Waldo from that Van Halen video, Hot for Teacher, just totally like shaking and sweating in the front seat, like I hope they don't kill me. So I went into this classroom, and they had a fleet of Apple II computers. And I learned how to use Logo.
Oh, Logo.
Hello, Logo.
Hello, Logo.
Which was pretty much you type in some commands like go to 10, some I forget. It's been a long time, but I programmed a little triangle to create a geometric shape and learn the basics of programming, as well as putting in a 5 1/4 inch floppy disk to play a game and to do other stuff. So if it weren't for my mom saying, hey, let's get him into an extended learning program, I wouldn't have had my nose in front of a computer screen since I was 8. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Mom, for pushing me in that direction, because I would have liked to have slept in an extra hour and not been fearful for my life with all those big, mean high schoolers sitting behind me. It was all worth it, because now I'm the big meanie out there in public who knows a lot about computers. AJ, what's a memory that you have about your mom and technology?
So you just reminded me, if it wasn't for my mom, I wouldn't have been introduced to the internet. Because there was, so outside of like school and stuff, like getting back to like our moms are clearly the gateway drug to geekdom, and
according to you.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, I'll prove my point.
Dude, parents just don't understand. But anyway, how does your mom?
My mom was hip. Okay. I mean, she was hip to the day, right?
Good for you.
So, like, I remember when the Kitsap Regional Library got public access terminals, and my mom would always take me to the library to get books, right? But I remember, like, once we had access to that, you used to get like a whopping 30 minutes on the public access terminal.
Oh, yes.
And I thought that's where I started learning about like this. Remember web crawler?
I do.
Yep, that was the first search engine
yeah.
that I learned how to search, and you had to use these operators called Boolean operators.
Oh, Boolean, how I miss these.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, no, I don't miss it.
But no, like I remember like my mom introducing me to getting to the library. We'd have to get onto the machine, but use your whole library card, and then there would be a little timer that would show up, and then you get kicked off after 30 minutes. And I thought it was cool because as a kid, I really liked Garfield. And so like I could go to garfield.com and just wait for the screen to load, right? It was funny because like growing up, we were in this podunk little town called Seabeck, Washington. And growing up, I didn't get a computer until, Windows 95 era.
In the mid-90s.
Yeah. So what was I doing before then? Believe it or not, I learned how to keyboard on a electric typewriter.
Of course you did.
Where you would plug it in and then you'd hear this
Yep, I know it well.
Yep. And I remember my mom, she was a speedy typer, and I always thought that was wicked cool. And so I would try to do the same thing, and of course I would jam the keys and all this other jazz. And then I remember at it was probably my middle school going into junior high, my dad got us the Brother word processor.
Brother word processor.
You remember those?
Word to your brother.
Yeah, word to your brother. For those of you who don't remember this era, it was kind of the rudimentaries of computing without having a computer. There was no modem. There was no nothing. It was a black and amber display with basically an app, if I could call it that had a word processor.
I think back in the day they called it application.
Oh, application. I just remember it. I just remember typing on it. But it was funny because like that was my first foray into typing a text document. Then I remember my pops got us a Windows, I think it was Windows 95 machine, some either HP or Compaq back in the day. And that really kind of started getting me into my stride. But I didn't really come into computing until much later. It wouldn't be until end of junior high, start of high school, when my mom kind of looked around the school to try to find somebody who was into computing. And for me, I was more on the art side of things, obviously. And we found a teacher who did graphic design. Her name was Crystal Ducoster, Mrs. Ducoster.
Hi, Mrs. Ducoster.
Hey, Mrs. Ducoster. And if Crystal, if you're listening, you are still the goods. And so anyway, her and my mom talked about like the graphic arts program, the GAP. And I was too young to get into it, but she took me under her wing. And if it wasn't for my mom kind of introducing me and trying to like, again, kind of like you wet behind the ears, like, oh gosh, what is all this stuff? I wouldn't be into photography. I wouldn't be into Photoshop. I wouldn't be into any of that. I'd stay later in my tenure at high school because I was in deep into printing. And so my mom would pick me up after Crystal, would teach me, oh dude, if you want to talk about old school Mac, I think our big Xerox Professional color printer, which I think it would print up to, 18 inches. Big back in the day, right?
Yep.
11 by 17.
That was huge.
It was controlled by a little print server on an old, I think it was a Mac Quadra or Quattro? Quadra. Do you remember those?
Yes, I do.
Yep. It was running some proprietary Xerox on a Xerox software on an old Mac OS, probably 6.
This could have been the Scully days, right?
Definitely Scully days.
Right.
I don't think... Jobs might have just came back from the wilderness.
Could have, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I see your Mac Quadra Xerox print job, and I'd raise you Print Shop Pro.
Oh, heinous!
Which was a program that
I remember it.
Yes, and I remember it vividly because back in it's got to be like late '80s, early '90s. The banner "Happy Birthday So and So" and the bitmap graphics that took about 5-6 minutes to print out multiple perforated sheets.
Are you kidding? It took 5 or 6 minutes to open up the file.
That too, yes. So I do remember those days. Funny thing in middle school, remember the Fresh Prince, DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince song, Parents Just Don't Understand?
Yeah,
so my version of that was I wanted an Atari like all my buddies.
I had an Atari 20. I still have an Atari 2600.
Of course you did. My parents took that request, that begging, that pleading, and then once again chose to get me a Texas Instruments 84 TI 84 computer.
Oh, wow.
Which it had a typewriter built in, and it had a cartridge container. So instead of Pac-Man, I played Munchman. Yep. And instead of Pitfall, I had Tombstone City.
Oh, that one I don't know.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That's kind of like a grid type thing where you blow up the aliens and then they turn into saguaro cacti and stuff. And then there was a game called Alpiner, which was this wonderful game that you could barely, you had to like get your guy on both sides of the screen.
Oh, wow.
Like, you know how Pac-Man can disappear from one end and reappear on the other? You had to be able to balance that because the Abominable Snowman on the last level would like knock you down, and eventually kill you. And so I had to like work it to be, but I eventually beat the game. And I was like the coolest person in my bedroom. Not in school, but in my bedroom because I beat the game.
Spoken as a true geek.
Yep. So anyway, and with a TI or Texas Instruments computer that I had connected to our hand-me-down color television with the old 2 through 13 dial VHF.
Oh yeah, with the clicks.
Yep, exactly. And the manual volume adjustment. I had a 21 or 24 inch square color screen to play my video games, but that was about it. And then I had a cassette recorder where I could try some programming.
Oh, those things.
And record my programs onto cassette tape, which I never figured out. No, it made the
oh, that one. Okay.
That kind of stuff. And for some reason I was able to make stuff work, but I never figured out programming. Hence, I'm not much of a programmer in today, but I could play games pretty well. So yeah, my middle school and high school days revolved around a TI 84. Is the TI 84 the graphing calculator?
Well, TI 83 is a graphing calculator.
Okay, so I got the Texas Instruments computer with the cartridge thing. I forgot the model number, but we'll
look it up.
Yeah, exactly. But that was my middle and high school days of wanting an Atari to play the games with my buddies. So I'm thinking the next evolution to computing that involved my parents, mainly, and also my mom per se, was after high school. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to the community college near Sequim, in which it was a full ride journalism scholarship. And in getting to know the program, I would be creating news articles, and I'd have to work in graphic design. Back then, it was Aldous PageMaker, y'all.
Oh yeah.
And they had Apple Macintosh computers, SE30s and Performas, and a couple others that were fairly expensive, like beyond what I was used to. But my parents thought so. I decided to stay at home the first 2 years of college, and commute 15 miles to Port Angeles back and forth to do my community college curriculum. I had to write stories, but if I was I had to do the work on the Mac. And so they're like, okay, well, you got this. Let's get them what they're using in the journalism department. And so therefore I had one of the original Apple Macintosh classic computers.
Oh yeah, the all-in-one with the green screen.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, it wasn't the green screen. It was like a blue. It was like a monochrome.
The black and white one.
Yes, that one. Yes. And that was a wonderful thing because it was very svelte compared to the big, everything for towers and such. And so I had Apple Works, I believe. And I didn't get a licensed copy of PageMaker because it was amazingly expensive back in the day for that. But I could at least create the document, save it on a disk, and then copy and paste into this stuff. So,
and that would be pre-Adobe too, because that PageMaker was its own thing.
Yeah, Aldous got eaten by Adobe back in the 90s, late 90s, I think.
I think mid-90s, yeah.
So anyway, I had an Apple Macintosh computer thanks to my mom and my dad, who were wanting me to keep up with the times, which improved their cool factor a little bit because it wasn't, like, hey, Mom and Dad, I need an Apple Macintosh, and they didn't get me like an Amiga, which is like, it's not compatible. So anyway, that was helpful in the next evolution because I've always had a computer in my room growing up. And so that was always something that a tip of the hat, where I have gratefulness that they always invested in something.
Yeah, same here.
I got to back up a little bit.
Rewind.
After
Or let me sync up your tapes.
in high school, in high school, after the Texas Instruments whatever
Fiasco. No.
they got an Apple clone, which was a Laser 128.
Now this I don't know.
No, so there was a fella in town who kind of built his own computers.
Oh, one of them in the garage, right?
Yeah, well, kind of. But it was an Apple clone.
Sure.
And it had an amber monochrome thing, but it had the 3.5-inch floppy, and so then I had a word processor and the such. So I was able to level up in high school, which was I now recall it was like Apple II at school, Texas Instruments at home, Laser 128 in high school, then Apple Macintosh in my sequence of tech. But my parents always threw down on it, and that was really, I'd never realized it at the time that I made a career out of it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So on that note, we should probably mention that you might be listening to us on KMRE 102.3 FM.
My mom's favorite radio station in Bellingham because it's low power.
It is, and it's community radio because moms love community. I don't know. That's the only thing I
that
can
works.
think. I was trying.
All right, sounds good.
So should we segue to the other mothers that are very close to us, our wives?
Yes, absolutely. The mothers of the children that we have.
Yes.
And we love them dearly. AJ, I know your wife is a little bit more tech nerdy. I don't like using the word geek.
She's a gamer girl.
She's a gamer girl. Your words, not mine. But I definitely think she is nerdier than my wife regarding technology. So give us some evidence as to what your current relationship is with your spouse and how it relates to technology.
Well, she is probably one of my biggest rah-rahs whenever I have a harebrained idea. And as long as it doesn't break the bank, she usually goes for it, especially if it's framed in a way to make us. Here's the thing about my wife. When it comes to technology, my wife is all in. If it makes more time with me or as us as a family, like if it costs a little bit so that we have more time together, game over.
Sounds pretty wise to me.
Exactly. Now, if it's something that's just loud and annoying, or a lot of things that you and I talk about off the mic, like chasing the newest shiny because you have to have it, she's not down for it. But anything that saves time, saves space, saves brain cells, the joke that I usually say, technology is a tool only if it gets you to happy hour sooner.
Yep.
Like that's the whole thing. If you're using a piece of technology and it doesn't serve that purpose other than the fact that you have it, why do you have it? It's not a useful tool. And so my wife really adopts that. One of the technologies that I might throw out, if you haven't gotten this for your mom or maybe your wife or that female person in your life that you respect like none other, if there is something I could throw out to the audience, and especially if they're a reader, look at the Kindle. Now, if your significant other, partner, wife, that madre in your life has things taking up your space, look at technology like the Kindle, because it has the ability to take up minimal space and still keep your digital book and reclaim some of that space. And what's nice about either a Kindle, realistically speaking, you don't have to be hyper nerdy to operate it. The Kindle, especially, you put in your Amazon credentials, you go and buy books and they show up.
Or you get your Bellingham library card and you get things connected with your Amazon account and you get yourself some free library books.
Exactly. You can, the Overdriver Libby app.
Libby, yep.
And if you have a Bellingham or Kitsap Regional or whomever library, most systems in Washington State work with it.
The Washington Library System.
Washington
Anytime Library. Yes,
any day or something like that.
I should know because I was a volunteer tech coach for like 3 years at the Bellingham Public Library.
Right.
So yeah.
As my wife's reading something, or if I'm reading something on there, we'll share stories or think about technology that would bring you together and spend time with that person. That's kind of my 2 cents on it.
So my wife is not wouldn't be classified as a gamer girl, although we do play some board games and some card games, which is nice.
Yeah.
But my gal is so we're a blended family, and so when we said I do about 8 years ago and we came together as a family, we kind of merged our technology together. And of course, I'm on the bleeding edge back in the day, and she isn't. And so,
Okay.
and so I get a chance to be able to work on my sales pitch as I get to paint a picture of why this technology might be helpful.
Yeah.
Like this, this phone, she is not one for the bigger phones. So early on in our
Preach.
Fair enough. Early on in our relationship, I had one of the first phablets.
I remember it.
It was a Samsung Galaxy Note 2, and this thing I have fond memories of going to a restaurant and placing my phone down and seeing a waitress or hearing a waitress say, "Oh my gosh, that's a huge phone." And which I, would say, yeah, it's one of those Note 2s. It's kind of a new phone. And, and so my beautiful wife referred to it as my Fisher Price phone. So that's awesome. But I stuck with it because I realized just how much screen real estate one could have and to be able to watch video, et cetera, et cetera. And I made a lifestyle adjustment and such. She is stuck with the small form factor. And that has meant an iPhone 4, an iPhone 5S, and now currently an iPhone 5 SE. One of the things that I have enjoyed is... we started off in our family technology. Back in the day, I had a Western Digital TV player in which you've got this little what the heck device.
Yep.
It's about the size of 3 Apple TVs stacked on top of each other. But you connected a USB drive and it would play movies, music, photos, et cetera, et cetera. So we were able to have a little bit of a movie jukebox of digital movies, mainly of the Disney Pixar ilk for our young daughter at the time, who has since outgrown those and is now currently into
Halt and Catch Fire.
No, she I don't think she's down with that. Actually, our daughter's more into just pretty much the mainstream stuff. I mean, she's down with Avengers and she's down with a whole lot.
The Bachelor.
Let's not talk about that. Anyway, but getting an Apple TV, like the black hockey puck version of the Apple TV. That was, coming out of the family budget. So we needed to have a discussion to talk about its merits because the Western Digital TV, WTV player was just fine. But honey, you can do so much with this. Let me show you. And so to be able to show how, instead of everyone hunching over a 4-inch screen to look at photos from a vacation, to be able to use this wonderful technology called AirPlay, to be able to throw it up on our big TV and to be able to have a slideshow and zoom in with pictures and to stream music as stuff's going on around the house. That's some family positivity right there. And so I think, as technology is just not a priority for my wife's in my wife's life, and that's totally cool. And I think it's great because if we both were all about technology, things might get into like this weird arms race in which we're trying to outdo or outgun each other in some things. I got this. No, I got this. And so I think it's a good balance by having a chance to be able to no, that doesn't really matter to me because that helps me get a little bit more in touch with the analog side and give me perspective. It's like, wait, it's not all about what I'm getting in iOS 11 and how I can have everything on one device with a Bluetooth keyboard on a Sesame Seed bun. So, I'm grateful that I have someone special in my life that doesn't make technology a priority because it's a good balancing act.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, your spouse is very similar to mine where it's like the sales pitch part aside, but you're trying to make more time or using technology to have more family experience.
Yes.
And I think that's what's kind of critical. I mean, it's going back to like our stories of our moms, if they would have known that them getting us into this hobnobbery known as the technology would make us want to use technology to be closer to our families, I think that would melt any mom's heart.
Just like the entire podcast we've done so far. All right. So we love our moms. We love our wives. Let's talk about some other things we love. Content creation.
What are you doing these days, Chris? That's a hard dovetail right there. But okay.
I think it's more of a drift.
Yeah, it's a drift.
I hit the e-brake and I'm drifting right now.
Like you stole it.
Drifting into content creationville. I'm working on this wonderful thing called micro.blog. And it's a website that is... I just love this compared to Twitter. There's a wonderful community. They're all supportive. They're all encouraging. They're all friendly. That's kind of the main thing. You want to be around people that are nice. You don't find that very much on the internet. Talked about this before in a couple episodes. Just recorded episode 13 of my Minimal Tech Microcast, which are
available in iTunes.
Yes, available in iTunes. Thank you very much. Just search for Chris Powell. You might see my ugly mug in the photo there.
Correction. Let me make that edit and post. Handsome mug.
Yes. So it's pretty much 2 to 3 minutes of a concept or a technology tip in which I'm challenging myself to do everything in one take. So spoiler alert, folks, the Bellingham podcast is not all one take.
For the most part, it is.
Yeah, but you do some massive edits.
Only if we go over 30 minutes.
Yeah, well, pretty much. But anyway, sometimes I'll screw something up and I'll flub things, and it's like, all right, we got to do that bit again.
If I need to edit this part out, is what you're saying.
Pretty much.
Just
yes.
kidding.
But it's a great exercise for me to have a one-take monologue, minimal monologue, in which I can communicate some thought and work on sharing information, which I'm really enjoying. Oh, by the way, I just deployed my 101st newsletter.
101, I saw it this morning.
Yes, Quiet Conversations, bit.ly/Quiet Chris in our show notes if you're interested. But anyway, I'm thoroughly enjoying the 3 avenues of content creation. This podcast, in no particular order, this podcast, my Mineral Tech Microcast, and my Quiet Conversations newsletter. AJ, what the heck is going on in Patreon land?
Well, I've gotten some first run prints off of the first 3 rolls of film. Yes, you heard me right. Processed, and
that's not the kind that I have on my teeth, right?
Well, if you did, that'd be kind of cool. Like I could see a picture of like your mother on your grill.
Actually, it's the teriyaki chicken I had for lunch.
Oh, okay. It's very abstract. Anyway,
different film.
No, so I've been using 2 film cameras, an old Konica C35, which is a rangefinder camera, and then a Olympus OM1. It's cool. I've actually got a post on the OM1 and why I think it's probably the most quintessential camera anybody could ever use or own on my site, ajbarce.com. And just go into the story section. You can read why I am in love with this camera, and it's kind of recentered a lot of my photography and just using it. So much so that I'm kind of doing some minimal spring cleaning, and there is a lot more gear possibly on the horizon leaving my arsenal as opposed to being acquired.
You gained the inertia from our previous episode where you really got rid of a whole lot of stuff, huh?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So you're actually getting into like the monk life.
Well, kind of. I don't know. Honestly, like, it's kind of funny. Like all of the content creation that we do, either independently or collectively, like on the show, it does. It has kind of changed my personality a little bit because, well, one, I'm saying it and putting it out there. So if I say it, I should be doing it, right?
Absolutely.
As opposed to some pompous podcasters out there, that just to say it as like this hyperbole. But no, like a lot of what I've been kind of dealing with is one, saving time, saving space, and kind of finding what I really need to have. One kind of as a recap of something that we talked about a few episodes back, I sold my first watch.
Oh, yes.
I don't think I've told you this yet.
Not yet.
So the Ingersoll just sold today.
The Ingersoll is going away?
This Ingersoll got sold. So
hang on. That was a moment of silence for the Ingersoll. Did you thank it for its service?
I did.
All
I
right.
did. I sold it to a local. And so it again, it was one of those things where I love that watch. My wife picked that watch out, and even she noticed I don't wear it that much. And much like some of my photography gear that I mentioned a couple episodes back, I don't want to have gear just sitting around and not serving its purpose as a tool. If somebody else can use it, that is the life that it should have.
Very good.
And so that's kind of the demeanor I've been taking, and even in my photography. And as you've seen, I have a lot of kit, and slowly I'm starting to kind of repeal and replace some of that kit. So
getting to what is important
Yep.
and what is necessary. Very good. Hey, folks out there, if you've made it to this part of the episode, thank you very much for listening.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. What thing in your life, what technology item in your life can you never give up? Never going to give you up.
Never gonna let
that's
you
right.
down.
But what? And then also, what tech item could you give up if you had to? Give us a call at area code 201-731-8324. That's area code 201-731-TECH. Leave us a voicemail. Let us know what you can't part with and what you can part with in your tech life. We'd love to hear from you and continue this conversation as AJ is parsing more out of his life, and I'm whittling down to the bare bones daily driver level of stuff. Just sold my MacBook Pro, so I'm down to
that's right.
iPhone 6S and an iPad Pro 12.9, so that's about it. Anyway, I think this has been a fun episode. Beats the crap out of these heavy topics that we've talked about in recent episodes. But once again, to all the moms out there, thanks so much for listening.
And we love you.
And we love you all too. So AJ, wrap it up. Do what you do.
That wraps it up for this edition of the Bellingham Podcast. Thank you again, Mom, so much for listening to us, rating us, reviewing us, giving us 5 stars, Mom. And wherever you love to listen to us, which is usually on your iPad. If you're in the Bellingham area, which unfortunately she's not, you might listen to us on Camry 102.3 FM.
Low power.
Community radio here in the heart of the city by the Salish Sea. On that note, I love you, Mom. I'm AJ Barce.
And not quite subliminal as AJ, I am Chris Powell. Thanks again, Mom, for all that you've done in my life. But for the rest of you, we'll see you next time on the Bellingham Podcast.
Ooh, and thank you, wife.
Yeah, thanks, wife.
Thank wives.
My wife, too.
Wives.
Yes, we can't forget about the wives.